You can still see it, that one face. Maybe it was a person who laughed at you in front of a room. Maybe it was someone who looked away when you needed them to look at you. Years might have passed. You might not remember their name. But the face stays. You've probably assumed this is just how memory works. Emotional moments stick, so the face that caused the emotion sticks with it. That explanation feels complete. It isn't. The real answer is far stranger. Your brain didn't file that face away by accident. It built a permanent, high-priority record of it on purpose, using machinery that is millions of years older than the person who hurt you. Think about what a face actually is to your brain. Not a name, not a personality. A face is data. It's the fastest processing visual object your brain will ever encounter. Before you consciously register that someone is smiling, walking toward you, or turning away, a set of neurons has already made a judgment. Is this person safe? Is this person a threat? Is this person going to help you or hurt you? The psychologist Alexander Todorov spent years studying exactly how fast this judgment happens. In his research at Princeton, he showed people unfamiliar faces for a tenth of a second. A flash, barely enough time to blink. And still, participants formed confident opinions about whether that stranger looked trustworthy, competent, or aggressive. A tenth of a second was enough. Your brain doesn't wait for evidence. It renders a verdict first and gathers proof later. Why would evolution build something so fast and so opinionated? Because for most of human history, a face wasn't just a face. It was a survival forecast. Your ancestors lived in small groups, 50 people, maybe 100. In a group that size, every face you knew belonged to someone who could keep you alive or get you killed. Someone might share meat with you during a famine. Someone else might report your location to a rival band. There was no HR department. There was no police force. There was only your ability to read faces correctly and remember the ones that mattered. Here's the strange part. Rejection carried more survival weight than acceptance ever did. Picture two people in your ancestral past. One approves of you. One rejects you. Losing the approving one costs you a friend. Losing the rejecting one, if you don't remember them accurately, could cost you your life. A person who has shown hostility toward you once is statistically more likely to show it again. Your brain, running calculations you were never consciously aware of, decided that negative faces deserved more processing power than positive ones. Not because your brain is pessimistic, because your brain is a risk manager. This is where the psychologist Leslie Zebrowitz comes in. Her research on what's called overgeneralization theory found something that sounds almost too tidy to be true. Humans consistently read certain facial features as danger signals, even when there's no actual threat behind them. Low brows, narrow eyes, a downturned mouth. These read as anger or hostility to your brain within milliseconds, regardless of the person's actual intentions. Your visual system evolved to spot a threat pattern fast, and it doesn't ask for context first. It reacts and lets your slower, conscious mind catch up later, if it bothers to correct the impression at all. Now combine that with memory, because detecting a threat is only half the system. The other half is making sure you never forget it. The neuroscientist Elizabeth Phelps studies exactly where memory and emotion intersect in the brain, and her work points to a structure called the amygdala. It's small, almond-shaped, buried deep near the center of your skull, and it does something almost unfair to the rest of your memory system. It tags emotionally significant experiences with a kind of biological red flag, one that tells the hippocampus, your brain's memory archivist, to store this one differently, more vividly, more permanently, with easier recall later. A face connected to rejection, humiliation, or exclusion gets flagged this way almost automatically. Your amygdala doesn't care whether the rejection happened in a Stone Age cave or a middle school hallway. It reacts to social threat the same way it reacts to physical danger, because for most of human history, those two things were nearly the same thing. Being cast out of the group didn't mean loneliness. It meant no one to share food with, no one to warn you about predators, no one to help gather resources during a hard season. Isolation was often a death sentence, slower than a lion attack, but just as final. So your brain built a lasting alarm system, and faces are its trigger, not names. Not what someone said. The face. Because in a world without written language, without photographs, without any way to record who was dangerous, the face was the only ID card your ancestors had. And once your brain decided a face belonged to danger, forgetting it wasn't an option evolution could afford. You can test this on yourself right now. Try to remember 3 people who complimented you last year. Difficult, right? The details blur. Now try to remember 1 person who embarrassed you, or dismissed you, or excluded you from something. That memory probably arrived instantly. Full color, full detail. You can likely still picture their exact expression. That asymmetry isn't a flaw in your memory. It's a feature that kept your ancestors alive long enough to become your ancestors. Here's the twist that makes this even stranger. Your brain doesn't reliably update this system with new information. Once a face has been coded as a threat, that coding is sticky. You could see that same person years later, after they've changed completely, after they've apologized, after they've become someone entirely different, and your amygdala will still spike slightly the moment you recognize them. Not because you're holding a grudge on purpose, because a piece of ancient hardware inside your skull is still running the same threat assessment. Program it ran for hunter-gatherers, who never got a second chance to be wrong about a rival. This is why a single awkward interaction from a decade ago can resurface in vivid detail while you're lying awake at 2 a.m., seemingly for no reason. Your conscious mind has moved on. Your amygdala hasn't gotten the memo. It's still guarding a border that, biologically speaking, no longer exists. Now think about the modern world you actually live in. You are no longer part of a tribe of 50 people where every face is a life or death variable. You interact with hundreds, sometimes thousands of faces on your commute, in your feed, across a screen, at a job, in passing. And your amygdala doesn't know the difference between a coworker who mildly annoyed you and a warlord who would have raided your ancestral village. It applies the same ancient urgency to almost all of it. That's part of why social rejection today, even something as small as being left on read, or excluded from a group chat, or ignored at a party, can feel disproportionately devastating. Your rational brain knows the stakes are low. Nobody is going to starve because a group chat didn't include you. But the part of your brain running the alarm system doesn't calculate stakes. It only recognizes the pattern. Exclusion detected, threat logged, face remembered, which brings you back to that face, the one you still see clearly, years later, without even trying. It isn't a personal failing that you can't let it go. It isn't proof that you're overly sensitive or that you dwell on things too much. It's proof that your brain did exactly what it was built to do, using a system so old it predates language, cities, and possibly even modern Homo sapiens itself. So the next time an old rejection surfaces uninvited, sharp and vivid in the middle of an ordinary day, you don't have to fight it as if something is wrong with you. You can recognize it for what it actually is, a tiny, ancient guard, still standing post inside your skull, still convinced that remembering every threatening face is the only thing standing between you and extinction. You can still see that face, and now you know exactly why.